This is The Bagel Report, a podcast exploring Jewish representation and identity in popular culture, with your hosts Esther Kostanowitz and Aleeza Ben Moshe, and now a production of J, the Jewish News of Northern California. Hey there, Bagel listeners. It's your friend Esther K. Last week and this week, we covered Jewish Matchmaking, the new breakout hit of a Netflix series that dives into the lives of Jewish singles who are looking for love with the help of charismatic matchmaker Aleeza Ben Shalom. If you love Jewish Matchmaking on Netflix or our conversations about the show, don't miss Alex Wall's piece in J, the Jewish News of Northern California. The article, Aleeza Ben Shalom Made Me Fall in Love with Jewish Matchmaking, is entertaining and well thought out, and it echoes and expands on some of the thoughts that we had during our episodes on the subject. You can check out this and other articles at jweekly.com or check the show notes for the link. And don't forget to follow, like, subscribe, and comment, or send us messages by email. You can reach us at thebagelreport@gmail.com, and also on Facebook and Twitter at The Bagel Report or Instagram at TBRThePod. However you reach us, we'd love to hear from you. Enjoy the episode. Okay, so Erin, today on The Bagel Report, we've got a great guest.
Yes.
Those of you who watched Jewish Matchmaking on Netflix may remember her from her date with Stuart, the musician from Chicago. But she's famous and accomplished besides that. She's a comedian, a disability advocate, and speaker who performs worldwide. I did not fact check that, but I think she's performed worldwide, promoting disability inclusion and awareness of Tourette's. Welcome, Pamela Schuller.
Thanks for having me.
It's great to see you here.
We're so excited to have you. And we have some questions for you about the show, obviously, but we also want to know about you too. So there'll be a few questions about that as well.
I'm an open book. Go for it.
Amazing. So I guess I want to start with, how did Jewish Matchmaking find you, or how did you find them?
They found me. So like 7 years ago, and I apologize, I have a bit of a cold. So I sound like I have a bit of a cold right now. Like 7 years ago, I was doing a show in LA, and Aleeza, who is the matchmaker, was in the audience, and she ran up to me after the show and she was like, "I'm a matchmaker. I'd love to match you." And I laughed at her. I wasn't ready. It wasn't on my radar. I was career focused, and I talk openly about having Tourette syndrome. And I think the timeline of loving Tourette's was different than the timeline of dating with Tourette's. And so that took me a little longer. And I truly laughed at her. And like 6 years later, she messaged me and was like, "Are you dating now?" And I was like, "Yes, now I am." And she was like, "Cool, I'm working on this thing."
Oh, wow.
6 years. Boy, you really stuck in her matchmaking craw. Like really, yeah, for sure. You know, this is actually, Erin doesn't know this either, but I was looking through my Facebook friend requests like last week, and Aleeza was in there from like 2 years ago, and I had just not seen it, didn't know who she was. And, you know, so it's really funny. There, but for the grace of God, I wonder.
You might have also been at that event I was speaking at where I met her, potentially.
Was it at one of those collaboratory things?
Yeah.
Oh, interesting. Okay. All right. Well, that's a mystery solved. Thanks. Pam is also a Jewish detective, like connecting people all over the world.
I can't get over this. You met her, and then she really did. She played the long game and just kind of like had this instinct. You made such an impression that like she still was matchmaking with you in mind.
I love that. Yeah. I mean, we were Facebook friends from that day, and we had like kind of peripherally kept in touch. But I love that, like, I don't know. I think it's cool that she was waiting for me to be ready to start dating and has kept me in mind.
And did you have any like fears or hesitations going in? Like, did you know anything about who you were going on a date with?
Very little. A little bit. We had a few phone calls, and my fears and hesitations were more about, I'm an open book on stage. I perform for a living, and my dating life hasn't really been something I've talked about a bunch on stage. In stand-up, I had jokes about it, but my family didn't know much about my dating life. It was like the one thing I don't talk about something on stage until I've really done the work to embrace it. And so it wasn't something I was talking about. And so it felt a little scary to like really put myself out there and like date on camera.
Yeah. It's like it's like similar vulnerability to going on stage, except you're not like you, the performer, you're you, the person.
Yeah. And I will be honest, as I was watching it, I can see my Tourette's on a date, and I've never been across from me on a date. And that was like a new thing I had to kind of deal with.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons that like just the prospect of like dating on camera is so just beyond the realm of anything I would consider, because I have enough going on in my own head on a date. I don't need to actually also be watching myself and see what I'm doing. Not that you embarrassed yourself, because you were great and people loved you. I mean, you must be experiencing this also, as that people really loved you. They loved you with Stuart. And, you know, they wanted you to live happily ever after. But, you know, I mean, it's very nice. You did not. We know this because, not just because you're my friend and I feel like I would have gotten a phone call, but also because he posted on his Instagram that you guys are just friends and that you're in touch and that there was a connection. And that was kind of like what we saw, but it wasn't a romantic connection. So I'm just wondering if you feel, if this is like, what you think this says about the difference between like reality TV and actual reality, and what the difference is between what people see happening between two people versus what is actually happening between those two people.
I think what you saw was pretty real. We both, I mean, I when I watched it, I was authentically me. I think in most aspects of my life, I try very hard to just be authentically me, which is, you know, awkward and quirky and, you know, all of the things. But when it's aired, they have to cut it down. And so I think you saw a connection, a friendship connection that we weren't totally sure about yet, but we had a great time. So I think that was pretty accurate.
That's amazing. I think that is not probably the experience of a lot of people. I think most of us understand that when you're talking about a reality show, you're talking about a certain degree of unreality as well.
And how much involvement did you have with Aleeza, like during the show? I mean, I know she had the long game before, but what was the process like working with her leading up to this?
So I knew kind of my role was to come in and date someone. I wasn't, you know, the camera crew wasn't at my house. I knew all of that. And so we had a few phone calls leading up to it. So like she gave me very minimal information. I think she knows that I love Google, and any identifying information, I would have figured out who this was, and I would have known everything prior to going into it. So it was more about like, she gave me bits of information that would just like get me excited to meet someone. And we had a lot of conversations about like, you know, listen, like if this isn't it and this isn't a match, I can't wait to work with you. And let's talk about like what this might be like moving forward. And you're putting yourself out there. And so, you know, more of a chance to find the right match.
I love that. Did you have any experience with matchmakers before this? And like, what was it like with Aleeza? She just doesn't seem like the matchmaker that I have in my head. She was so completely different from that.
What you see on TV is so real. She's wonderful. She is kind and sweet and understanding and like a cheerleader. I feel like she's part of the reason why I felt comfortable, because she was like, just go be adorable, be you, be funny. Like she was like, you know, maybe don't say all the bad words, but like everything else.
Some of the bad words.
Yeah. I mean, listen.
Not all of them. You don't want to give up all of the bad words on a first date. That's what they tell you.
Is that it? Is that one of the
somewhere?
That's got to be in some like rule book, like, you know, watch your mouth. I had never worked with a matchmaker. It had never occurred to me to work with a matchmaker, which is funny because in every other area of my life, I know I'm not I'm an expert in very few things. And even those areas, I don't always feel like an expert. And I think there's something beautiful in like admitting that we don't know everything and it's okay to ask for help. And I'm certainly not an expert in dating. I started it late in the game, but I also I wasn't an expert in working out. I'm still not, but I hired a trainer. You know, when I wanted to fuel my body better and feel healthier, I hired a dietitian. So in all of these other aspects of my life, it made total sense. And for some reason with dating, it just felt like if it's hard, you'll never do it. And so I don't know why it never occurred to me.
I love that. I don't think I've ever had that explained. If you want to help your body, you hire this person. If you want this, you hire this person. So why not hire someone to help you in that element of your life?
And we all do that for other people, right? Like when communities want to work to do more with inclusion and mental health, they hire me. When communities are looking to put on a comedy show and find some laughter, they hire me. And so I think that's like part of what makes the world beautiful, that we don't all do everything. And I think it takes a level of therapy. For me, it took a level of therapy to be like, there are a lot of areas that I could use support, and I'm in a place to be able to bring them into my life. Why would I not?
Well, what an excellent point to transition into talking a little bit about the consultancy that you bring to other people, because you are an expert that people call on for various things. So I'm wondering if you can tell us a little bit about the different kinds of performances you do. I know that you have done stand-up in comedy clubs, and you do these very important workshops with Jewish and other organizations whose work centers on disability and inclusion. And I'm wondering, could you give us an idea of how these kinds of performances differ and how people respond to them?
Yeah. So I was a comedian for years. And then people started asking me to talk about my experience with disability. And I did like a Jewish version of a TED Talk that did really well. I don't know if they're still doing them, but they were called Eli Talks years ago. And I kind of talked about inclusion and disability and comedy and pulled it all together. And I also have a master's in advocacy and policy and certificates in executive coaching, all focused on disability, inclusion, and mental health. So I've combined all of these, and I do a lot of shows where I combine comedy and storytelling to talk about inclusion and mental health, and then give that community tips and tools to kind of get to the next level. So it's a mix of entertainment and education. And I worked with major companies and brands and colleges and synagogues and JCCs all over the world. And then I also do kind of pure stand-up. I will be honest, that is for specific audiences, like typically dirtier audiences, like colleges and New York. So what I do more often is the combining of comedy and storytelling.
I love that. And I also love that, like, because you have this presence, like, people know you. So people are like excited to see you on this show. Maybe. I mean, I was excited to see you on the show. But like, did you hear about the reactions? Like, what did people say to you? Like, are you reading comments from strangers? Are you ignoring it? Like, what was that like for you?
So at this point in my life, I'm pretty good about not reading comments from strangers too often. I'm really lucky. I did a lot of videos with this guy named Dr. Mike, and he gets millions and millions and millions of views, hundreds of thousands of comments. And I learned pretty quickly, if I scroll too deep, I get my feelings hurt. Mm-hmm. So I kind of took that into here. And Brene Brown has an incredible quote about, like, don't take feedback from people not in the arena. And it's really easy from someone behind a screen to comment something mean about Tourette's, my body, my height, anything. And so, but I'm excited to hear from people I like in my world. And so my phone and social media was blowing up for a few days, which was really fun. And it was like, someone I did a show with at random part of the country was like, I was watching Netflix and then you were on my screen. And that's been fun. And it's opened a lot of conversations about disabilities and dating and diversity, which I don't think we see enough of.
And I like that you say that, because we know that it's important for you to portray Tourette's honestly and accurately. But do you feel that people got a sense of what that is like with the few little moments we saw on the show?
Honestly, probably not. But I think that's okay, because on a first date, I am not disclosing everything about me, right? Mm-hmm. Like, we talked about my dad's dead. He lost both of his parents. We talked about that. I probably on most first dates wouldn't talk about dead family members. I don't need to give every diagnosis. I don't always use the word Tourette's. It's like I give myself agency to decide, but I do think it did a beautiful job at portraying that we all experience and participate in Judaism differently. And we all bring different things to relationships, right? Like Tourette's and 4'6" and a little obsessive compulsive disorder on my end, but also funny and inappropriate and loud and quirky. Like, we're all bringing all of these things. And I think that was really beautifully shown.
Do you have a sense that this will bring you new professional or romantic possibilities?
I don't know about professional. That's always like, who knows? But romantic was why I did it. Like, I almost felt like it was me being like, I'm single and I'm ready to mingle. Like,
it's a great, what do they call that? Like in the South, they had the coming out parties, it's the Pammy ball. Welcome, here she is. She'll descend a staircase and she's ready.
So I'm kind of like, that's truthfully, and I'm still talking to Aleeza regularly. She's like doing an event in New York and I'm performing at it in like this week.
That's great.
But it's like truly, I have put so much work into loving my life. I have this career that I love. I have a place in New York City that I love. I've put so much work into becoming a person that I want to spend time with. Like I tour alone a lot of the time and I have a great time. And I'm not looking for someone to complete me. I'm looking for someone to like join in on the fun I'm getting to have. And I'd like to hope that maybe that like gave people an idea of like, Tourette's isn't scary. Disability is not scary. I'm quirky and fun and I'm twitchy. And if you're interested, hit me up.
Thanks, Pam. I think people are also getting a real idea of who you are in this interview, which I couldn't be more pleased about. But I want to read this tweet that you posted that was about Mother's Day, because I want to ask you a question about it. So you posted, "Happy Mother's Day to me. I'm great with kids." And it's photos of kids screaming, her screaming, drinking, and her throwing balls at children. So many people have said, actually, it looks like you're not that great with kids. Don't you love an actually? And I love when people explain my joke to me. Now, I imagine this people explaining jokes to you probably happens frequently. And I am not a professional comedian, but I know this has happened to me when I've said something funny on a date also. So I'm wondering if this happens to you on dates as well. And if people you're dating try to match your comedy. And if so, why? Since they obviously can't match your comedy.
Well, some of them can.
Really? You found people who can? Wow.
So a lesson I've had to learn over and over and over is I shouldn't be dating comedians, but I find them funny. So it's like I continue learning that lesson the hard way. By the time I'm dating someone, so a huge thing I look for in a match is commitment to the bit. You have to understand what a bit is, and you have to be willing to commit to it. And that's like, you don't have to be a comedian, but you have to have like a witty banter mindset. I really struggle with like, how's the weather? Like, that kind of, but like if we could just be bantering, that's hot. That's what I'm going for. And so by the time I'm dating someone, usually they can commit to the bit and get it. And there's banter and they're not explaining a joke to me. I don't know that I would get many jokes in with someone who continues explaining to me why something is funny.
Well, I don't think they'd get many dates in with you because that's not what we want. Do you think committing to the bit and banter is hotter than to fill in?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Oh, sorry.
You're good.
I got a phone call during this.
I think it was God intervening and agreeing with you.
Probably was. I'm going to put it on do not disturb. Yeah. Commitment to the bit is huge. I'm not someone who's going to synagogue regularly. I'm like a high holiday goer. So, yeah, way hotter than, but I like that reference to the show.
We're all about callbacks here. And we want to illustrate that we've actually seen the show, not just.
Oh, we definitely have seen the show, and we actually just had a podcast come out all about it. And I think one of the surprising things for us is that, and I am saying this with someone from Netflix in the room. So hi, hello, and sorry. Not all of the shows like this work. Like we don't like a lot of them. They're weird or they're cringy, or it's like, who are these people? They're clearly like actors trying to like get an endorsement from something else. Again, hi Netflix, so sorry. But like this show doesn't feel like that. It feels very natural. And I wonder if you've met other people from the show to share experiences and kind of like, or whatever, or if it was just kind of like, this is your thing and not.
Until we didn't know, and like, not really. I knew one other person who had done it, and we figured out we had both kind of done it through just kind of a random series of events, but way after filming. I haven't met almost anyone, but we're meeting this week at the New York event with Aleeza. So we're connected on socials. I can't wait to learn more about them and their journey and like pick their brains. I will say I have maybe 150 people who have messaged me saying, I wanted to do it. Tell me everything. And I haven't had capacity to respond to those yet, but that's more of what I've gotten.
Well, I think that's interesting also because it shows that they were really selecting people. It wasn't like they had 5 people and so they picked those 5 people, that there was like a large pool of people who wanted to do this, and all the more power to all of them and to you, and wishing all of them amazing things.
Never sought out to do reality TV or docuseries. That's like not something I was, if Aleeza had not been like, I want to match you, I don't know that this would have ever been on my radar.
Right. It sounds like she is responsible for a lot of the people who came in. And I have a friend who's a regular Bagel Report listener who often, as she's listening to our episodes, she'll send me questions and she'll ask me questions. And whenever we talk about anything, she asks me all the questions. So she binged Jewish Matchmaking. This is hi, Samantha Taylor. You deserve a shout out because you're the one who's always telling me that you've listened to these episodes. So she sent me a message all in caps. When do we get more episodes? You know, and I know you don't know that, but do you have a sense that there will be a season 2? Have they said anything to you about that?
I have no idea.
Okay.
I have no idea. Yeah, I wish I could answer the way I think people are loving it, so I think that's step 1, but not a clue.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Would you be involved if you were asked?
Oh, if I was asked. Maybe. I truly would love to designate time to date. I travel so much. I'm so busy. And so that could help me make this a priority, more of a priority in my life, and schedule time for it. So potentially, I think that's a great question. I think that would be conversations we'd have to have. I don't know. I could go either way. I don't know.
Well, it does sound like you'll go either way. Either you will or you won't. Right?
I don't know that I'm leaning in one direction. I want to find love, and I'm willing to do some a little bit questionable things to do that.
Well, I think that
unorthodox.
Well, that's a whole other thing, unorthodox.
But also that sounds kind of orthodox.
Right. So yeah, and my unorthodox life and unorthodox, and
I just met a bunch of them.
Again, hi Netflix.
Came to my show.
But no, it's been really interesting to see the emergence of Jewish-centered content on all the platforms, and particularly in this sense on Netflix. And I'm just wondering if, to close us out here. First of all, we want to thank you for being with us today. We know how busy you are, and we're glad we caught you at a computer between gigs or whatever this is. I just imagine that as soon as you're done with us, you're going to go to another junket of interviews or something like that.
I fly to Detroit for a show.
This is what I'm talking about. You see, Detroit. Detroit. Aaron got married in Detroit last year.
Oh, really?
Whole family's from Detroit. Yep.
Oh, mine is not far from Detroit. Toledo, Ohio.
Heck yeah, Toledo. Holy Toledo.
To go, yeah.
Could you guys please make a Jewish geography connection right now? I feel like it's supposed to happen.
I mean, my mom did go to Ohio State, but she lives in Michigan now, and that is a choice.
Oh, that's funny. Half of my family is Ohio State, half are Michigan fans. And I love drama. So 5 minutes
We're here for it.
Yeah. I'm that jerk that I don't watch sports. So 5 minutes into a game, when someone's team is winning, I'll be like, what could possibly go wrong now?
Oh my... You would not be allowed in my house. Although my brother went to Michigan State just to spite them both.
Oh, I love good drama. I don't love sports, but drama, I'm in.
We love the tea, really.
Yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, Esther, back to your question.
Oh, yes. So I have one more question before we go. And Aaron, if you have another question, we can also do that. So it sounds to me like without Aleeza, you're not in this. And without the work that you're putting into being ready to date, you're not in this. So the trust and the commitment, the trust in Aleeza and the commitment from yourself are 2 key ingredients to moving forward in this, dating pursuit. Are there any other lessons that you've learned either from the show or in your history of dating? Maybe some of the things that you joke about on stage, that they're actually jokes, but they're based on real things. What have you learned?
A few things. I've learned we all have something. everyone has something about us that we are nervous to bring to a relationship, nervous to show, grappling with, learning to love. That's a big one. And also, I'm going to be unapologetically me. Like, sometimes I bark because I have Tourette's. If I'm going to bark on a date, I'm going to bark on a date. Like, if I am unapologetically me, it's okay. If I find out pretty quickly someone isn't, I would share it. And rejection is a part of this. And comedy prepared me for rejection. And now I can utilize that in my love life.
I love that.
That's a great answer. Thank you, Pam.
And we ask this question at the very end of every episode, almost the end of every episode. We are the Bagel Report. What bagel do you identify with?
I feel like people are not going to love this answer, but I crave bagels when I just want something comforting and salty and delicious. So I love an everything bagel with olive cream cheese, but it has to be a New York bagel, fresh out of the oven, delicious.
And this is why you live in New York, so that when that craving strikes, you can just run down the corner.
Yeah, literally. Although the bagel place on my corner closed and I'm still upset about it. But yes.
Okay, so Bagel Report listeners, do your thing. Help her find a new bagel place.
Yes.
Right.
And a husband.
No. And a husband.
And a husband.
Like a husbagel. Yes. Maybe,
a husband with a side of bagel.
Maybe you could have a modern day Crossing Delancey where you date a bagel salesperson. That would be good.
Yeah, but they have to be up early, and I'm not.
Damn, copyright. Right. Well, you're up late because of the comedy. So there'll be this time in the morning where you're just coming back and he's going out, and then that's the twilight of the relationship. That's the bucket that you have to make it work. I think I'm going to workshop this. Netflix, call me. All right.
I see what you're doing here, Esther.
Yes. It wasn't my intention, but you can't submerge a pitch when it happens.
Always have to be pitching.
Yeah. ABP, always be pitching. All right. And also be Pamela. That's what it stands for. All right. Thanks so much for being with us today.
Thank you so much for being with us. It was amazing.
Thank you so much for having me.
This has been The Bagel Report, a production of Jay, the Jewish News of Northern California, and a part of the Jew Folk Podcast Network. Thank you to Lev Gringaz, our producer from Jew Folk Inc., David A.M. Walensky and Andrew Essenston, and Danny Lipsky for creating our logo. You can find us wherever podcasts are listened to. Connect with us on social, on Twitter, at Esther K, at Eben Moshe, and at The Bagel Report, on Instagram at Esther Kostanowitz, at Eben Moshe, and TBR the Pod, and by emailing us at thebagelreport@gmail.com. Now go and watch something interesting, and maybe we'll talk about it next time on The Bagel Report.